The following is a deep dive podcast generated by Notebook LM based on content from my upcoming book. In this podcast, we answer this question: is it really possible to forecast ROI with confidence, or is it just a guessing game? In this episode, we uncover the surprising truth about value and how redefining it can turn ROI forecasting into a practical, predictable process. And now, let's listen to the podcast.
Ever wish you could actually see the future when you're making a big decision for your business?
Uh-huh. Right.
Especially when it comes to, ROI.
Yeah.
Everyone wants that crystal ball to know for sure what the return on an investment's going to be way down the line.
It's kind of like, trying to predict the weather 5 years out.
Oh, totally. It'd be nice though, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Certainty is like the holy grail, isn't it?
Well, get ready. Because on today's deep dive, we're going to dig into this idea
We are.
that ROI forecasting doesn't have to be such a guessing game.
Right. And a lot of that starts with this assumption that we tend to make that value is just intrinsic. Things just have a set worth.
Oh, so you mean how I'm convinced that vintage record player I have is going to be worth a fortune someday?
Exactly. You and every other vinyl collector out there. But think about it this way. Let's say somehow it's discovered that your record player actually belonged to David Bowie or something. Suddenly its value, it's through the roof, right? But was that worth always there, just hiding? Or did the story, the context, totally change the game?
Okay, yeah. That's a good point. So the context, the story around something, it really does affect how much it's worth.
Exactly. And that's a huge part of what we're unpacking today.
Okay, I'm hooked already. Let's do it.
And the interesting thing is, that subjective side of value, that it can shift and change, it's not actually a bad thing. It's a huge opportunity when we're talking about this whole ROI forecasting thing.
Okay, now you've got me really intrigued because that sounds a little like, I don't know, business magic almost.
Not magic, just smarter planning. Our source material calls it metrics alignment. And honestly, it's kind of a game changer. See, when everybody's on the same page from the get-go about what value even means, and more importantly, how you're going to measure that down the road,
Yeah.
well, you're not staring into a cloudy crystal ball anymore. You're actually, bringing things into focus.
So instead of just guessing what some random market's going to think something's worth years from now.
You're all agreeing on how you'll determine that worth based on, solid outcomes you can measure.
Right. So it's not, oh, this project will be so successful. It's, this is what success looks like. And we all agree on what that is.
Nailed it. And because those metrics are already decided, you can actually track your progress toward them, making the whole forecasting thing way more solid. Instead of just hoping your investment goes up, it's like you picked your target growth, and now you're choosing the investments to get you there.
That reminds me, there was this example in what we read about a software company, right?
Yes, they were trying to figure out ROI on this new feature, and instead of just going on gut feeling, they zeroed in on two questions. First, what's the actual pain point this solves for users?
Makes sense.
And then, how will we measure if we solved it well?
So it's like getting crystal clear on the problem and how you'll know it's fixed.
Exactly. And the key is, they decided success meant users actually using the feature more. They figured if it's solving a real problem, people will spend more time interacting with it.
Yeah.
So they could measure that increase in engagement.
So they took something kind of fuzzy, solving a pain point, and made it solid. User engagement. That's really clever.
Right. And because they did that up front, they could actually project how much more money they'd make just from that engagement going up. They went from guesswork to actual data, all thanks to metrics alignment. It's powerful stuff.
It really is. This whole conversation makes me think of what they said about value being like Play-Doh instead of a gold bar.
Yes. I remember that analogy so good.
Because good luck trying to reshape a gold bar.
Right.
It's gold is gold. You can't really mold it into something different. But Play-Doh, you can make it into whatever you need.
And that's exactly how we've got to start thinking about value when it comes to this whole ROI thing. It's not this fixed thing sitting in a vault, right? People's perceptions change it, the situation changes it, and the biggest thing, those agreements we make on how we're going to measure it, that shapes it.
So it's not about predicting some, magical number that's already been decided. It's more like we're actually part of the process. We're almost I don't know, engineering our own ROI instead of just forecasting it. Does that make sense?
I love that because it's true. By setting those clear metrics, getting everyone on board early, we're basically laying the tracks for where that ROI can go. Instead of just watching it happen, we're part of making it happen.
Okay, so anyone listening who's like ready to toss out their crystal ball and actually take control of this stuff, what's the big takeaway? Where should they start?
Honestly, ditch that whole intrinsic value idea. Embrace the fact that value, it's subjective, it changes. Once you accept that, you can have those real important talks about how you're going to measure it. Don't shy away from those questions. What does success really look like for this project, and how will we all agree that we've reached it?
Because, I mean, if you don't decide,
Yeah.
someone else will,
Oh, correct.
right? And their version of success might not be yours. It's kind of empowering when you think about it. We have more influence over ROI than we realize.
Absolutely. And to take it a step further, it's worth thinking whose buy-in matters most in what you do. Who are the big players whose idea of value really carries weight? Because those are the folks you really want agreeing to your metrics from day one.
That is such a good point. It's not enough to just pick some random metrics. You got to know who's ultimately deciding if those metrics equal success in the first place.
Okay.
So, listeners, next time you're looking at a project and that ROI question pops up, remember, value. It's not this mysterious thing set in stone. It's Play-Doh. You actually have the power to shape it.
Make it work for you.
And on that note, that wraps up another deep dive. We hope you're walking away feeling energized and ready to tackle those ROI predictions. Until next time.
So, there it is. What do you think? To recap, we covered forecasting ROI as a practical process, understanding value as subjective and not intrinsic, and the power of alignment on metrics. Number 1, forecasting ROI as a practical process. We challenge the notion that forecasting ROI is a guessing game. By aligning on value metrics up front, forecasting becomes a reliable tool rather than a roll of the dice. Number 2, understanding value as subjective, not intrinsic. We explore how value isn't a fixed number, but a subjective measure that depends on agreed-upon metrics. This shift in mindset allows for more meaningful, predictable ROI calculations. And number 3, the power of alignment on metrics. We discuss the importance of defining metrics with stakeholders, both current costs and future success measures. With these aligned, businesses gain clarity on the outcomes they're working toward and can forecast ROI with confidence. That's it. This has been the Communicating Value Podcast. My name is Paul. I'm the Value Coach, and as always, thanks for joining.